is Ryan Gonzalez. I'm going to be moderating the session for you guys today. Briefly, before I introduce the rest of the panel, give you guys a little intro on myself. So my journey actually started in mechanical engineering, believe it or not. So that may be some of you out there in the crowd right now. I went to college. I'm a big car guy, so I was like, all right, well, mechanical engineering is going to be the way to go up in the Motor City. So just seemed like the right path, and went to school, did an internship, realized that I actually really enjoyed the business aspect of things and not necessarily engineering. And so ended up graduating from the University of Michigan with a business degree in marketing. And from there, it was, right off into print advertising for me. And then very quickly realized that I should probably switch to digital, maybe the way to go. Again, print's not dead, I guess. Technically, you'll hear that term a lot, but it was a great start into my career, which transitioned into digital marketing and web development. From there, I went to research and analytics for a few years, and then found myself at Delta Airlines, which is where I'm currently at down here in Atlanta. And while I was there, I actually transitioned into product management. And that's what I've been doing here for the last 3 or 4 years. And so it's been a very interesting road, a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different skill sets that I've learned, but I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to moderate. Like I said, we have a really great panel. So I'm hoping you guys all get a lot out of this session. So with that, I'm actually kick it off to the group here. Justin, if you don't mind, just introducing yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Ryan. Great intro. So my name is Justin Wade. Little background on me. I born in Cleveland, Ohio, where it's cold and snowy by the lake. Yes, I'm a Browns fan. It's painful. But I grew up in Cleveland and Akron, Ohio. I went to the same high school LeBron James actually went to, just Akron's claim to fame these days. Went to college in Cincinnati, Ohio at Xavier University and got a marketing degree as well as an MBA. Spent the first 10 years of my career in Cincinnati working. I initially went to a startup where I was the 5th employee selling school furniture online. And what that meant was I had a marketing title, but I did everything from unloading furniture off of pickup trucks and LTL trucks to hanging my own internet cable to even putting the first 5,000 products in the database that we were going to sell. So got a really good introduction to bootstrapping and really understanding what it takes to work at a startup and wear multiple hats, and eventually stood up the company's first vendor management program, negotiating all the deals with the pricing we would go out with and like sales and promotions related things. Transitioned that into working for Macy's and actually wanted to get more operations experience. And so spent about 6.5 years in the call centers at Macy's, focused on credit card management, credit services, security fraud, credit authorization. And then after 6 years, really decided to get back to the web. And so made a transition within Macy's to product management in San Francisco, where Macy's.com and Bloomingdale's.com were managed at the time. And spent the next 6.5 years in a number of product areas, from post-purchase related things like returns management to the search engine, machine learning algorithms, and recommender systems. And so did a variety of things. And the last 6 months, I've actually been in product at Google, and I'm on the Google search team focused on food ordering.
That's awesome. Great background. That move out to Cali ended up being huge for you. So that's fantastic. Let's transition over to Dennis. Dennis, I know Dennis. I've worked with Dennis. Very happy he's on the panel with us. Dennis, take it away.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Ryan and Justin. Just very briefly on my background, currently at Delta Airlines, where I work and I'm responsible for several experiences and products in our digital channels, being our site and our mobile app primarily. Like I said, been there for 12 years, background educationally, kind of similar to Ryan. Perhaps it's a Michigan thing. It's where I'm from. I started off in chemical engineering and then later sort of transitioned into business and specifically getting a bachelor's in marketing before going on to pursue my MBA in technology management. Started off on our development side, which was really probably product before we started product at Delta. Spent a few years there, moved up to the business side, where I worked in our revenue management team, really around airline economics and econometrics, supporting multiple international entities. Had a chance to get some international experience working with some of our partners as an expat for a couple of years in Amsterdam, and then came back to Atlanta where I joined the digital team and have been there ever since. And so support a number of experiences through our original purchase process, a number of our ancillary products, bags and seats and those sorts of things, as well as products in the corporate space for corporate customers and our loyalty program and all of those attributes. So glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate that intro. And apologies for people. It sounds like maybe there's a little bit of an echo, so I think it may have been me. I put myself on mute here, so I'll continue to do that as we go forward. Well, thank you guys. And I know I think we're still waiting on one more. It looks like she's maybe having some technical issues, but we are just going to power through right into these questions just to keep things going. So I do have a set of questions that I'd like to ask you guys. And again, feel free to hop in and answer if you guys want to hop in and have anything else to say. So to kick it off with the first question, Justin, for you. And I know this is kind of almost maybe a bit of a cliche question, but I think it's really important, especially when you're passionate about something. But what is your favorite product?
I actually had put myself on mute too, because I didn't know if I was the echo. So, well, thanks for the question, Ryan. I think it is a bit of an interesting question because I don't know that I could actually tell you that there's one product that's my absolute favorite. I think that products are very context specific. So Dennis is going to talk about what makes a great product in a few minutes, but the TLDR on it, or the quick summary from me, is the best product solves a user need, and it does it really simply and really elegantly. And so the user need that I find a lot is I have 2 kids under the age of 5. And so one thing that's very precious to us is nighttime and sleep. And that doesn't always come easily. And especially when we travel, we were finding that we had to actually take white noise makers with us so our kids wouldn't be as weirded out by the sounds of a hotel or sounds of a family member's house. And so finding an app called Relaxio, which is a white noise maker on your phone, was life-giving to me, because now we could pack less. It feels like we're always packing so many things with little kids, and living in California and having family in Ohio, every trip is far. So the user need for me was, I don't want to pack the bulky things I need for white noise making or have family members have to buy them. But I want to have a really easy way for my kids to stay asleep. So it's super simple. It's one screen. It's free. And what was the last thing we heard?
It was simple. It was like a single screen kind of design.
Yeah, I love the simple design. I love the fact that it's free, and I love the fact that the marketing is elegantly put at the bottom so it's not in your face. And it's an app that, will it be my favorite app in 10 years? I don't know, but it is for right now. And I think that's the beauty of a great product, is it meets your need today.
That's a great answer. And it's funny, especially when I was in product, Dennis, can speak to this too. When I was in, product down in the e-commerce portion of Delta, I mean, that's really in for any company. You want to keep those designs simple. You want to keep them streamlined. You don't want to make it complex. I mean, there's really a UX component to all this as well. That's really critical. Thanks, Justin. Appreciate that. Dennis, let's turn it to you. And I know, kind of stemming from that question, what makes the best product?
There you go.
And also, let's take a time out really quick. Here's Hannah. Hey, Hannah, what's going on?
Listen, if you're going to be a part of a technology company or in tech in general, you got to be okay with some technical issues every once in a while. But I'm here, and I'm happy to be here. So thanks for waiting for me.
That's good. We're rolling with the punches. One thing I will say, it sounds like we've been having to go on mute a little bit. There's been some feedback. So just if you're not talking, go ahead and go on mute. But really quickly, Hannah, if you don't mind, just doing a quick intro for yourself, and then we'll toss it back to Dennis.
Okay, sounds good. So, hi, my name's Hannah. I have worked in tech, specifically SaaS, for real estate companies for the last 12 years. I've held roles in everything that you can think of, from client success to operations to product management to product leadership. I'm currently working with product managers who are trying to get into the space, helping mentor them on how to level up in their career, as well as helping companies retrofit their culture to be able to adapt to the evolution in tech. So that's me in a nutshell.
Thanks, Hannah. Appreciate it. We didn't hit one of your questions yet, so you're good to go. So sit back and Dennis, let's turn it back to you here. What makes the best product? What makes it user friendly? What makes it easy to use? What do you think on that?
Yeah, so I think when I think about what makes a really good product, it's probably founded in 2 sort of high level areas, right? One being largely speaking, many of the products, at least that we're speaking about and talking about today, are products stemming from businesses, right? And so I think a big part of it is one, well, maybe let me flip that. First, putting customers first, right? So meeting a customer need, and Justin talked a bit about that. But then the second piece of that is also making sure that it drives the business outcome that we're looking for, right? Whether that is, there's a number of metrics that folks in the product space typically look at, conversion and CSAT and NPS, and all of those are metrics, but at the end of the day, it needs to drive bottom line impact, right? So either some cost savings or some revenue production, as well as fulfilling a need that's really important for customers. So I think that's what makes a good product. What makes a really great product is, for me, a product that not only meets a customer need, but meets a need that the customer may not necessarily even be aware of that they have, right? How can we reduce friction in an existing experience? How can we, to Justin's point, the white noise maker? And for me, it's probably, if I just chose one, not necessarily my favorite, but it's the WikiBuy extension for Chrome, right? That's not something that I knew I needed, right? It's something that I typically did when I shopped online. I would look and price match, particularly when I'm looking at Amazon, because I know they're a great company and great experience, but not always the best price. And so I would look around on my own for other sites and just simply Google it, if you will. But now we have this extension that I didn't know I need that makes my life appreciably better in that experience and does some of that lifting for me. And so I think it's meeting a customer need, fulfilling a business objective, and driving and propelling the business. Which is really a cycle, right? When the business grows, then we can offer more things to customers. But then ultimately, to make it really great is fulfilling a need that we don't necessarily know inherently that we have, but are delighted when that need is fulfilled.
I love that. Yeah, like the surprise and delight. I mean, it's fantastic where a company can do that. It's great, and it's very innovative for you as a product person to be able to help innovate those ideas within your company. So I think that's fantastic. Cool. Well, thank you, Dennis. Hannah, I'm going to transition over to you. I think we've heard, so far from Justin and Dennis, about the product and what exactly a product, needs to be a great product and fulfilling product. But let's shift gears to almost the actual product manager side of things. So what does a typical day look like for you in the product management world?
Well, let me start by saying that there is no such thing as a typical day in the world of product management. It does not exist. You do a lot of the same things repetitively, depending on what role you're in, but there's no such thing as typical. Every day is different depending on where you're at in the product development lifecycle, what type of product you're working on. But lots of different levels in product management organizations. My most recent as a product leader, I'll start by saying that I had a ton of meetings. Lots of one-on-ones with my team, roadmap planning, removing blockers, executive meetings, things of that nature. You're always on your toes. Afternoons were spent doing roadmap reviews with my product leaders to see, answering that question that every product manager is asked, which is, when is this going to be done? When can I have this? When can the customers utilize it? Is something that you have to be able to balance, as well as what's going to be released in the next couple of weeks and go-to-market activities. My evenings were me trying to get back to my own work, answering lots of emails from customers, executives, my own team. But I would say that if you're in a product owner or a product manager role, your day can be different. That product manager is still very strategic. They're thinking about how to keep their product relevant, how to make sure that the engineers are stacked with work for the coming days. Your product owner is going to be a little bit more tactical. They're going to be working directly with the engineers on developing specs, maybe writing user stories, tracking the roadmap and tools. My personal favorite was AHA or working in Jira. So depending on where you're at or where you want to be, you can experience different types of days. But remember, they're never going to be typical. You're always going to be on your toes, and you'll hear the word balance from me a lot. Balancing and communicating are key in every single day in the life of a product manager.
That's awesome. And Justin, Dennis, anything else to add to that?
Just one thing to add to that. And first, Hannah, super thorough. That's exactly it, no matter where you go and where you work in product. I do think one of the key differences can also be across what type of company you're at for what your role is. I've worked in companies where the product managers were maybe a little more customer experience design driven and a little less technical. I currently work for a company where the product managers are pretty technical and a lot have a software background. And so it just varies based on what type of product, what type of company, and what type of industry and you'll see you'll need to dial up some skills, dial down, and that's going to affect your day.
That's great. And later I'll kind of touch on this as well when we hit our final question, but communication for me, especially in a PM role, has always been key. So I was at you, just being a good communicator and being able to, really voice your opinion and build those relationships with all of your stakeholders, no matter who it is, especially in agile methodology. Just making sure you make those right, relationships, and being a good communicator is really key. So great. Let's turn it over to Justin again. This is a really cool question because I love just the idea of innovation and being innovative within the role. Sometimes it's hard because, as Hannah just mentioned, we're running all over the place, every second of the day. So it's hard to even just sit down and be innovative about your product. But how do you encourage innovative ideas within your organization?
That's a great question. I think it's really easy to fall into a pattern and then to perpetuate that pattern in the daily work habits and sort of look for what's in the backlog next that we could do, as opposed to re-envisioning are there new and novel ways that we could solve similar pain points and problems. I think really three things about innovation strike me. The first is, one, I have to make time for it. So just for me, Friday is the day on my calendar where I do my deep thinking. I'm thinking the rest of the week, but there, to Hannah's point earlier, I'm in many, many meetings for very many topics, and context shifting from talking to an engineer to talking to finance to talking to legal doesn't really breed a great ground for me to have a continuous thought process on one topic and innovate. So one, I use Friday as my deep thinking day to create time. Two, I think that innovation happens best within a structure and a plan. So you've probably heard like, oh, if we want to innovate, let's get everybody together and let's brainstorm. I think that is a good thing to do. But I think an even better thing to do is to brainstorm within confines of how we want to think through the problem. Do we have an identified pain point or customer problem that we're trying to solve for? And typically innovation can happen in things as simple as, what could we subtract from the product that would be new? Or what could we add to the product that would make it new and different and reach a new market or solve a new need? What could we multiply? A quick story on multiplication as an idea for innovation. Everyone's familiar with the red eye that you can get when taking photos sometimes. And the medical reason for that is the light shines into your eye and there's blood vessels at the back and it shines back, and that's why they're red. So the innovative way that was solved when the photo industry recognized that was actually to say, well, why don't we just have two flashes? One will flash and won't take the picture. It'll cause your eye to actually constrict. The second will actually take the picture. Because your eye is constricted, we won't see the red eye. Like, isn't that innovative? Isn't that like a cool, novel way to solve that problem? And someone had to sit down and think about that and walk through. And when you do that, then it's cool to see when you have that breadth of options, which ones really resonate for really the clear problem you're trying to solve.
Great. And actually, I learned something about red eye photography. So thank you, Justin. That's fantastic.
Sure.
Want to add to that?
Yeah, I do. I think another thing that you can do is listen. It's not something that you think will really help, but listening, not just to your customers, but also to the people on the front lines, the folks that are selling your product, you'll be able to figure out many different ways to step actually in your industry. So I would encourage anybody in that role to start following, thought leaders in your industry and make time to meet with the frontline folks that are helping support your product, because they will help you uncover innovative ideas that you may never even realize were necessary.
Yeah. I would just add maybe two things. One, particularly as a leader in the product space, one thing that I think is important for us to do to encourage innovation is to Justin's point a bit about structure, to surface where there are problems, right? So instead of starting with a sort of blank slate, like what would we do differently? What would we do better? Like challenge people with, here are problems that we are currently confronted with, that our customers are currently confronted with, and think through how do we start to solve those problems or make those experiences better. I think that's a key place to start. And I think the other would be sort of probably get out of our product management work and really spend time. And there's a number of ways to get customer insights, right? And we can talk about that. But try to experience your products, right? Which can be difficult because when you're working in it, you think you understand it, you understand what you're doing, but try to, as much as possible, put yourself in the position to be the customer to the extent that you can. You never really fully can be, which is why we use all those other tools, but put yourself in that seat and try to just understand how a customer is consuming the products that we are providing to them.
Dennis, that's so good.
Awesome. I actually, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Justin. Go ahead.
This is a topic I'm passionate about, so I'm sorry I keep jumping in, but
No.
I think one other quick thing to really, if you want to quickly pull yourself out of the day-to-day and think about something innovative, is to think 10x. So if you think about the metrics you're trying to move, to Dennis's point, the problem you're trying to solve, what's going to move that problem 10% is probably within the wheelhouse of the ideas that we already have. But what if I told you we don't want to move it 10%, we want to move that metric 10x? Chances are incrementality is not going to get there, and it automatically snaps you out of, ooh, what are the other creative ideas that I could employ to do that? Because your brain will try to solve whatever problem you give it. So I think that's a really cool way too.
Insight. That's fantastic. Well, so let's do this. Let's shift gears. Again, Justin, I'm the same way, and I think this whole panel is. I mean, innovation is just such a cool topic, and we could literally have just an innovation product management session. So Lily, take notes. That may be a good session for everybody at some point. But let's switch gears. And Hannah, I want to direct this question towards you. What was your best resource when thinking about product management and learning to become such? So what were you reaching for? What were you leaning on? Was there anything in particular that really drove you, to be a good product manager and rely on those resources?
Yeah, I think when I started my career and was in client success, I was constantly on the front lines talking to customers about the products and the problems that they were dealing with, and would stay after late and help our engineers QA some of the work that was coming out, and kind of fell in love with the process of solving problems, which is why I personally wanted to get into product management. But as far as best resources for learning as a product manager, I would say find yourself a mentor. I've been lucky enough to have really great mentors throughout my career. One of them always said this, and it stuck with me. It still does, and hopefully it helps you, but it's simple. It's think and do. So as a product manager, which we were talking about just now, you work with many different groups, and you have to know their world to make the product better. So as Dennis and Justin mentioned, learn how to implement your product, learn how it's sold, learn the QA process, learn. That is the best thing that you can do to get into product. Also, I think don't get discouraged, because all these different types of backgrounds help you be a better product manager. So if you're in sales and you want to get in product, if you're in engineering and you want to get in product, this will all help you. I think read. I did a lot of reading. I know we're going to talk about books later. One of my favorite books is Lean Startup. It helped me significantly at the onset of my career. I started following a lot of different groups and just talking to people who have excelled, in the role. So I think there's a lot of learning on the job and thinking and doing yourself and solving those problems. But there's also a ton of resources that are available now to people who want to be in more of a school setting, like product school. And I just found out even universities like Yale are offering product-led classes. So for me, it was about transitioning and doing it while I was working, but there's a lot of different ways. I'd say continuing to communicate with your mentor and reading will really help you stay relevant and chase after the evolution of technology.
Right. Really wanting to understand how things work and how they don't work, and what we can do to sort of change things and improve upon things. I think that's one. Two, again, to bring it back to, we are talking about real products in real businesses in a real economy with real customers. And so there's tons of cool things that we can do, but really being able to think with a sound business mind and understand what are the business drivers, what is valuable to the business, how do we move the needle for those key metrics, what are the key metrics that this particular business is particularly tracking to, and then what are customers interested in, and that's constantly changing and evolving. And so understanding the customer space, understanding the competitive space, because there are definitely those out there, I think are some key things to do. And then also being flexible, because we talked about what is a typical day, and the typical day is there isn't one, right? And so it's a series of shifting your mind from sort of long-term, here's my product development, here's what's on my roadmap, here's the cool stuff that I want to go do, let me go design it, let me test it. But then there's also things break, or there are critical needs that come up, things that change in the business or things that change for customers. And I think the situation we find us in with COVID-19 is a clear example of that. Many businesses have had to pivot away from the annual plan, which we came up with just a few months ago. And so being able to manage ambiguity, being able to be flexible to change, and also really knowing enough about a whole lot of things, because product managers and companies, at least, specifically at Delta, they're really the glue, for the business, bridging to our technology providers in terms of our dev teams, right? And the business might be stakeholders that are asking you for things because they have a particular business need. They could be stakeholders that are impacted by the work we're doing, whether that's operations or whether that's finance or whether that's legal. And so being able to sort of talk to them and translate, here's what you're actually asking for, here's what our capabilities are on the technology side, and how do we actually bridge and deliver that. But then also understand what their interests are, because the interests are many and varied, and sometimes there's competition of interest. And so being able to understand, what do they care about and what do we care about, and how do we sort of satisfy all of these needs, some of which can at times be disparate.
That's awesome. Thank you, Dennis. I appreciate that. And just for everyone's awareness, we're at about 4 minutes until we hop over into the Q&A session with our chat. So what I do want to do, though, is I want to hit on one more question, and apologies to the panel. This is kind of skewing maybe slightly from where we were headed, but I think this is an important question, especially with the state of where we are. I know it's a burning question. It's probably been asked at many other conferences, in the last few months that have been virtual, but how has this crisis, the COVID-19 crisis, how has this truly reshaped or changed? Sorry if you guys can hear me. How has this really changed your perspective? And I'd like to hear from each of you briefly, if that's okay, on product management. What does it mean for the future of product management? What does it mean as far as even just doing things like this more often? Being able to telecommute and work in this capacity, especially in an area where, like I said earlier, communication is key and building relationships is key. So what do you all feel about that?
I'll start. I think that going through this, definitely companies are going to have to shift their flexibility. I've worked for companies who were very against working from home or working remote, and I feel like that is going to become a norm even after all of this is quote unquote over. So being flexible and able to shift your strategy, not only from a product perspective, but as a business perspective, is going to be highly important in how to deal with something like this. I was working in an industry that served vacation rentals and short-term rentals recently, and that industry has struggled and is struggling right now due to everybody being stuck at home. So being able to pivot and be creative, not only from the software side, but as a business, I think is going to be hugely important, and something that companies all over the world are going to be looking at internally to try to figure out.
Justin, Dennis?
Sure, happy to dive in. I think to the point on telecommuting, I think across many industries, including product management, this has shown us how many jobs can actually be done remotely. So that's one. Two, I think fundamentally we'll see a different balance in remote work versus on-site work. Two, I think products that support that telework and on-site work will keep improving to reduce things like latency, bugs, account for slow Wi-Fi and all the things that you need to do that. And I think you'll also see an offshoot of products that start to help build relationship and community virtually. I know we're doing things at work like having virtual lunches and virtual games just to connect together and not just use video conferencing as a meeting tool. And so I think you'll see more novel and new ways to do that. I think for the discipline of product management, Hannah, you nailed it. I think fungibility is key, because as a product manager, that while we may have deep expertise in one topic, and I think that's great to do, nothing wrong with that, we really need to be able to slide into other topics based on the process that we follow to deliver a product. Right? Some more easily than others, but I think that's going to be key, and you're going to see folks really double down on that as different industries are still picking up, and some may not pick up for quite a while.
Yeah, I think what I would add to that is probably two things. One, on the practical side, kind of to our earlier points, how we work in terms of being flexible, knowing that our plans sort of prior to March are in many ways quite different now, right? And different because there's different needs, but then also different to the extent that, when you think about just practically the availability of capital, for instance, right? So how do we do more with less? How do we prioritize or reprioritize some of those things that are on our backlogs and our list of things to go tackle and go do? and then increasingly leaning into research, right? How do we get customer insights to inform those things? Because this is a landscape that's changing in real time. And so I think that's one piece on the practical side. And I think from a customer standpoint, we talk about telecommuting, but I also think in terms of how customers engage in commerce, right? It's changing. And customers who probably before didn't embrace technology to the same extent, this situation has necessitated that. And so things that you would typically, I will go to the bank and handle this in person, or I will, call into your call center, or I would show up at your business. I think there's an increasing need now for self-service, right? There's always been that customer segment that prefers self-service, who are comfortable with technology. But I think folks who previously didn't do that are now having to figure out how to lean more into that. And so making sure that we have those types of experiences available, and then we optimize those. And I think, just speaking for Delta specifically, I think we see a lot of opportunity to optimize experiences that previously were not the experiences that customers were leveraging the most. But their needs have changed. They're now using different portions of our digital experience, and tons of opportunity for us to do work to optimize and improve those.
That's awesome. And it looks like, Justin, we may have lost you here for a sec. Hannah and Dennis, I think I still see you all. But let's go right back into the Q&A now in the chat. I'm going to apologize in advance. I know we have about 5 to 6 minutes or so to answer these. So there's a few I think I can consolidate here. So Dennis and Hannah and Justin, when he gets back, I'm going to consolidate 3 questions into one that I think has been pretty synonymous in the chat right now. Is how would you break into the PM space without any prior experience? And so it looks like through the questions, we have someone who's a consultant. We have someone who's actually currently a Delta flight attendant. We have some people that are just maybe not really going down that path right now, but want to transition at some point into the product space. What are your thoughts on being able to do that?
I would say do your research. If you don't have a technical background, as we talked about before, it's okay. There are different sides of product management. One that's kind of up and coming that is new to the space, and it's called product operations. And you don't have to have a super technical background and know how to code or know how to read code to do that. That side of the business is really taking a look at the data and making sure that the output is great from the engineers, make sure that the go-to-market activities are functioning correctly, and really helping assist product managers do their job. What I mean by that is, as we've all kind of talked about, you're wearing a million hats as a product manager, and the role of product operations is to assist do it all, but to really stick on getting the features out there and making sure that their product is competitive. So don't let the technical side of product management scare you. If you don't have that background, you can always learn it on the job. And there are many different types of roles within product management that you can go after to get started.
Dennis?
Yeah, so I guess what I would say is, and this is typically career advice that I give folks even outside of technology and product. Tell your own story, right? You have a ton of experience already, and I would specifically say in the product space, we are all consumers, right? We all use and consume products, and we have those inherent insights of what we like and what we don't like, what works and what doesn't. And so I would leverage and lean into that. I go back to what I mentioned earlier, understand the business, right? These are all enablers of driving business and customer success, which both sort of feed into each other. And then the third is customers, right? And I think you cited an example like someone who's a flight attendant, for example. A key part of their job is interacting with and serving customers and getting insights from customers. In fact, anecdotally, we get a ton of information from folks in our business who are on the front lines because they're talking to thousands of customers each day, and customers are giving them feedback. And so getting that feedback, that's a rich bit of data that you can use to determine, okay, what can I do differently in the business? How can we change these products? There's a need that we didn't realize existed. There are problems that customers are having. So I would say don't psych yourself out. There's definitely tons to learn, but also leverage what you already know and how you sort of connect those dots to the business and to products that we all use.
That's great. For time, I'm going to skip to the next one. I do want to get a few more questions in. Thank you both for that. Justin, welcome back. So real quick, there's been a few questions. I'm going to consolidate again down into probably I think there's 2 or 3 questions in the chat related to agile versus waterfall methodology, as well as, do you find it valuable to, get the PMP certification or get the Scrum certifications? So kind of somewhat related, trying to condense them as best as I can. So maybe a 2-part question. 1, do you have a preference between agile versus waterfall methodology? B, do you feel like having, said certifications in those areas will help boost your career in product management?
So maybe I'll just kick it off. We're going through a similar transition within our organization in terms of waterfall and agile and wagile, somewhere in between. I would say my preference is the one that works, right? Or the blend that works. I think, again, these are constructs. These are ways of working. You have to figure out what works in your particular organization. And for us, we work with a number of technology teams, and it's different by team, what the needs are and what the process should be. So I think you have to sort of find the way that's optimal for your organization. I think one of the things that I really like about Agile, and it's not to say shift to Agile, it's just to say one of the principles is really about communication. Mm-hmm. Communication, flexibility, small bites, incremental progress. I think those are generally good for business and good for getting things done in general in life, right? And so that's just my point of view on it. It's really not one or other. It's finding what is the process that works best for you to engage with your stakeholders, to deliver on the right things, to assess the impact, and to continue to optimize that going forward.
Yeah, that's fair. And Dennis,
Ryan, it 100% broke up for me, so I didn't hear the full question. I'm assuming it's about methodologies and how to utilize them. Yeah,
and just real quick, I know we have like 3 minutes. Justin, go ahead with yours, and then Hannah. Yes, that's exactly what it was. It was basically agile versus waterfall. Do those certifications in those areas really help bolster the career? You want to give a few sentence answer after Justin?
Sure. So just really quickly, I think that I'm a big believer in being mission focused because the method is going to change. And I think that that's true for career, life, family, lots of goals, but it's definitely true for agile versus waterfall. Love what Dennis said. You got to pick the right tool for the job. And a lot of that has to do with organizational dynamics and where they are in their transformation process or not. It also has to do with the distribution of teams and how well the organization can actually bring them together to communicate and collaborate. And it depends on the nature of the product. If you are in industries that are heavily really looked over and it's hard to get products to market, like in medical, it might not make sense to get something super fast out to market, because if you do that with a drug, you could hurt people, right? So I think you really have to be thoughtful about what the approach is that is going to work for you. But yes, advantage speed when you can, because learning fast and failing fast is typically a good thing as a general rule.
That's great. Hannah, thoughts?
Unfortunately, I didn't hear anything that Ryan said. I'm not sure why, but I can only see you and Dennis and not him. I'm sure his answer was amazing, as the rest of the ones that were on the panel today. For me, agile and waterfall, I agree with Dennis and potentially Justin that it depends on the product and the company. I think everybody wants to be agile. It's a little bit of a buzzword, and it means something different for every company, whether you're releasing daily, whether you're doing 2-week cadence. Communication is key, and setting up your teams to be successful and nimble, I think is very important. If you can fail forward, you can be an agile. If you have a product that is older and maybe layered on from an architecture standpoint and QA has got lots of arms and legs, you may have to go the waterfall route because you may have to roll back if things don't work out. So I do really think that it depends on the company and the product. I think from my experience, most product and engineers prefer a little bit more of the agile world, just because it's a little bit more fast paced and you can make changes should something negative happen during a release. As far as getting schooled in those disciplines, I think any type of learning and any type of reading can always help you be able to speak the language and communicate effectively to the teams that you work with.
That's great. One last question. I want to make sure you all can see me and hear me. Hopefully you can. We have like 0 minutes left, but this is the last quickest question we have. So if you could give the audience just one final piece of career advice in one sentence, literally one sentence, and I'll go first just to make it easy. Be a good communicator and an even better relationship builder. Mm-hmm. My advice. Anyone else want to hop in?
I say balance soft skills and hard skills. Understand how to have interpersonal conversations, work on your EQ, and also be able to look at numbers and data and use them effectively.
Yeah, I would say we're all consumers. Leverage what you know already and experience on a day-to-day basis. Be intellectually curious. And ultimately, as it pertains to opportunities, employment opportunities in particular, tell your own story. Stitch together what you have done, educationally, experientially in your employment and day-to-day in life. Stitch together that story and tell your own story about how that propels value to others.
And I would say that you need to write down your goals, make them SMART, which is an acronym you can look up later, but make them SMART goals. And then once you understand the white space that you have or the gaps against those goals, ruthlessly eliminate your white space to get to the goals you have through whatever means you can.
Like that.
That's awesome. Well, thank you guys very much. Thanks everybody in the audience for letting us take over your last 45 minutes on PM. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to Lydia or Lily. Obviously, I think we're all on LinkedIn, so feel free to reach out if there's any questions I didn't hit. We enjoyed it. I hope you all enjoyed it. Hannah, Justin, Dennis, thank you all very much.